This is an ABP Life podcast.
You know, guys, the COVID lockdown was a bittersweet thing. I know it was bitter for a lot of people, just bitter. But according to me, it was a bittersweet thing. Now, bittersweet because a lot of people lost their jobs during COVID, lost their near and dear ones during COVID. But also at the same time, a lot of people found a new approach to life. A lot of people navigated their life during the lockdown. My next door neighbor, Mr. Ghosh, who's 65 years old, lost his job during COVID. He lost his job at a private firm where he worked for 24 years. At the same time, his son, who is 25 years old, got a new job. Now, after this whole COVID scare, this COVID lockdown thing ended, the world was slowly recuperating from all the losses it had incurred during that 2 years. But a fear of recession was looming constantly over the multinational companies, the giant big tech companies. And that fear of recession has come true in the last 2 months. Yes. Big companies like Meta, Twitter, Microsoft, Byju's, all these companies have fired thousands of their employees. A mass layoff has occurred in these companies. And on top of that, according to a report published by Ned Davis Research in September, there's a 98% chance of a global recession. And this has triggered an alarm for all the blue and white collar workers, the corporate job workers. But now the question is, why are these big tech giant companies going on a firing spree? Why are they laying off their employees? Thousands of their employees. Let's decode all of this today. So welcome to Clear Cut, only on ABP Live podcast. This is your newsman Rudrashish, and today let's talk about this layoff that's been happening all over the world. So let's get started. So the parent company of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, Meta, laid off 11,000 workers as part of its cost-cutting strategy. The founder and CEO of the company, Mark Zuckerberg, said that he had to let go 13% of his workforce, which means 11,000 employees. Similarly, the new boss of Twitter, Mr. Elon Musk, fired 3,000 out of 7,000 employees. Microsoft, which is a big company, fired 1,000 of its employees. But why all of a sudden these employees are being let go? They are being laid off. Why is this trend happening? So according to reports, companies are now opting for cost-cutting measures. Now, according to a report compiled by the Crunchbase, the US tech sector has laid off 32,000 of its employees till July this year. The report also highlighted that over 11,500 people have lost their jobs in India in this year alone. Now, talking of India, India's big companies like Byju's, it has fired 2,500 of its employees. Unacademy, it has fired 1,150 of its employees. Vedanta has fired 624 employees. Ola fired nearly 500 of its employees. And now you all might be thinking, suddenly why are these companies laying off their employees? What has gone wrong in all of these companies at once, that they have to let go such a huge chunk of their employees at once? Now, as I earlier mentioned, that COVID was bittersweet for many people. But for the global economy, it was mostly bitter. And just after the COVID ended, this whole scare of COVID thing, the lockdown thing ended, the world was slowly and steadily recuperating from all the losses. The global economy was slowly recovering from all the losses. But immediately after COVID, the Russia-Ukraine war started. The fact is that today we live in a globalized world. One small impact in one random part of the world could possibly impact everyone living elsewhere. And these two nations were at war, Russia and Ukraine. They have disrupted the global economy, and for which global prices have soared, especially for oil and natural gas. Now, the International Monetary Fund said in a report earlier this year that the Russia-Ukraine war will affect the global economy in three main channels. One, higher prices for commodities like food and energy, which will push up inflation further. Two, neighboring economies in particular will grapple with disrupted trade, supply chains, and remittance, as well as an historic surge in refugee flows. And lastly, reduced business confidence and higher investors' uncertainty will weigh on asset prices, tightening financial conditions and potentially spurring capital outflows from emerging markets. Now, as I mentioned these three factors, it has already started to affect the global economy. Now, because of these three factors, the big companies all around the world have not performed well and have incurred losses in the first quarter. And that is why all the companies are taking measures, they are taking steps to reduce their expenditure. They're shutting down the non-revenue generating areas, domains of the company. But should you be worried? Now, it's very common. Even I'm worried whether this is going to be my last clear-cut episode or not. I mean, seriously, I am worried. And so are you, I know. But how can we protect our jobs? Now, a simple answer is we can upskill ourselves. We can add more gravity to our resume by doing something new, navigating something new in our life, in our career. We can learn some new skills. For example, me being a journalist, I can learn video editing, which can add more gravity to my resume. And same goes for IT employees as well. They can learn coding or any other extra thing that will add more gravity to their resume. Now, to speak further on this issue, we have Ms. Gitanjali Pandit on the show today. Ms. Gitanjali Pandit has been a best-selling author, columnist, and a chief human resources officer who's been in the business for over 20 years. So, welcome to Clearcut, Ms. Gitanjali. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Rudraji. Pleasure to be with you on ABP News and on Clearcut as always.
Same here. So, the big issue that everyone is facing right now is layoff. So, every big company, every giant company are laying off a huge chunk of their employees. What do you think is driving this trend?
Well, I think the foundation was laid in 2020 when it was very evident by the end of the first year of the pandemic that a global recession would be a reality sooner rather than later, right? And we know that the global economy, whether it was the UK economy that sort of set it off first, we knew that this was coming, right? And it's not that business is not to be had today. A lot of businesses have done very well during the pandemic. A lot of them anticipate doing very well. But globally, there is a problem in the supply chain. Globally, there is a shortage of raw materials. Yes, there is rising inflation. And also, I think a lot of people have overspent and overinvested. Okay. If I look at Facebook, Meta's own investment in Metaverse, they have spent something close to $9 billion, $10 billion on Metaverse, which has yet to pay them off.
Okay.
तो आज की डेट में अगर कंपनीज, ग्लोबल कंपनीज, आईटी कंपनीज हिंदुस्तान में एडटेक कंपनीज लोगों को ले ऑफ कर रही हैं, तो इसमें ताज्जुब की बात नहीं है. ये कुछ हद तक प्रेडिक्टेड था. ये काफी हद तक प्रेडिक्टेड था, ये काफी हद तक नोन था, बिकॉज ऑफ राइजिंग इन्फ्लेशन एंड द फैक्ट दैट the IT sector in the country has become one of the biggest employers, if not the biggest employer that it aspires to be. So, this was well known and anticipated.
Okay. So this was long overdue, ever since 2020, ever since pandemic hit us.
Overdue नहीं कह सकते, expected तो जरूर था. क्योंकि inflation was rising and 2020 और 2021 में हमने देखा कि द ग्रेट जॉब रेजिग्नेशन काफी चर्चित रहा. कितने हद तक रियलिटी था या नहीं था, आई डोंट वांट टू बी कमेंटिंग ऑन दैट, बट क्लियरली द power equation has shifted from the great resignation to the great layoff. And it's a global phenomena. A lot of people are course correcting as we move forward. शायद एक इंस्टेंस जो कोर्स करेक्टिंग का नहीं है, काफी हद तक वो हमारे देश के की एक जो एडटेक कंपनी जो काफी चर्चित रही अभी हाल में, वो जो है वो उनके जो नेचर ऑफ ले ऑफ्स हैं, जिस तरह से उन्होंने लोगों को ले ऑफ किया, वो बहुत ही इट्स बिन वेरी वेरी अनप्रेसिडेंटेड एंड आई वुड say very unpleasant.
That was unacceptable.
The way they have done the layoffs, yes. This is not how anyone across the globe. In fact, if you look at the layoffs affected by the global companies, especially the companies in the West, for the first time they have gone out of their way to give severance packages which are generous. They have looked at covering medical insurance costs for 6 months, more than 6 months in many cases. Facebook, Meta के जो 11,000 लोग उन्होंने अभी ले ऑफ किए हैं, उनके लिए भी उनका एक बहुत सेंसिटिव अप्रोच रहा कि हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस 6 मंथ्स के लिए देंगे, 16 वीक्स पे देंगे, प्लस 2 एडिशनल वीक्स फॉर एवरी ईयर ऑफ सर्विस. जो कि बहुत, हाँ, जरूर उन्होंने कुछ लोग ऐसे ले ऑफ किए, मैं कहीं पढ़ ही रही थी कि like a very young, a new employee that they had taken from India to Canada got laid off.
Yes, he was just laid off 2 days after he went to Canada.
जी, absolutely. So that of course थोड़ा सा उसको अगर हम साइड पे रख के बात करें तो they have been very sensitive. They have tried to do their best, and their compulsions have been various. कुछ हद तक ये एक ओवर इंडल्जेंस, कॉर्पोरेट ओवर इंडल्जेंस चल ही रही थी, जो कि अभी तक we know that Mark Zuckerberg continues to have his tilt towards metaverse, and we know that their own investment in metaverse will continue unabated, and it will not. But they have stopped other discriminatory spending. They have stopped unnecessary hiring. They are not hiring the way they.
Non-revenue generating areas से वो उनको completely shut down कर रहे हैं for now.
जी, बिल्कुल. और ये जो आपने अभी कहा, ये चीज शायद इंडियन कंपनीज में 1-2 जगह नहीं देखने को मिल रही, जहां हमें पता चल रहा है कि उन्होंने कितने ज्यादा पैसे खर्च चुके हैं, मिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स, करोड़ों रुपए लगा चुके हैं, फॉर बीइंग वेरी इंडल्जेंट अबाउट देयर ओन ब्रांड बिल्डिंग, जो कि हम लिंक कर सकते हैं उनके शायद फाउंडर्स की आउटलुक और फिलॉसफी से. And we know that the Indian unicorns haven't been doing very well over the last 6-8 months, because the funding which was more freely available till, let's say, January or February this year has slowed down, and not even $1 billion overall would have come into the unicorns, from post-February this year. So they have to turn inward to see how they can cut down on the extras. They have to see where they can, stop all non-revenue generating expenses. And let's keep our fingers crossed that they don't turn this into a laying off spree. Some of the Indian tech companies, for instance, Wipro and a few others, they have in fact revised their variable pay to their programs of variable pay have come down. They know that what they can control, they will have to try and control, because they don't want to be laying off people. That is possibly the last step that they want to take. कहना आसान होता है कि this is right sizing, but at the end of the day, कोई एक एम्प्लॉई है जिसके फादर को कैंसर होगा, कोई एक एम्प्लॉई है जिसकी वाइफ प्रेग्नेंट होगी, कोई एक एम्प्लॉई है जो जिसने कुछ और छोड़ के आपकी कंपनी अभी ही ज्वाइन की है. सो दीज आर ह्यूमन लाइफ एंड दैट सेंसिटिविटी हैज टू बी देयर.
Exactly. Now, since we are talking about these IT companies, these big IT companies, यही IT companies ने during the COVID lockdown, they went on a hiring spree because their business shifted to the online mode because there was a huge surge of e-commerce that led to revenue growth.
Yeah.
So, do you think these companies overestimated this time, this period, and this growth that this would last, this would stick around even after the pandemic ends?
Yes, I think to some extent it was a bit short-sighted. If few companies did this, yes, I know that they have done this, but it was a bit short-sighted because this was not in tandem with global economic forecast and global economic reality on the ground. This was just in response to their own industries upsurge. और आज की डेट में but mind you also that they became hugely profitable during the first year of the pandemic because they cut costs.
Exactly.
Their rental costs, the lease costs, their overheads came down so sharply that profitability rose. Right? So the problem is corporate greed because it does not focus on.
I was waiting for you to say that word, corporate greed.
They don't want to focus on purpose. They want to focus on, and they don't want to focus on stakeholder value because there is a universe of stakeholders. सिर्फ एक वो शेयर होल्डर को एक रिटर्न देना ही तो उनका मकसद नहीं हो सकता. वो तो फिर बहुत ज्यादा शॉर्ट साइटेड हो गया. और उसका कहीं ना कहीं एक भुगतान कंपनीज के एम्प्लॉइज को भी देना पड़ता है.
ओके. आई वांट टू हाईलाइट दैट इन कंपनीज ने काफी लेऑफ्स भी किए थे कोविड के टाइम पे, बट जो डिजिटली लिटरेट थे, a new term came to the existence during COVID, digital literacy. और उन्हीं एम्प्लॉइज को वो हायर किए और रिटेन भी किए जो डिजिटली लिटरेट थे. थे जिनको उतना समझ नहीं आता था ये जूम क्या है, इनको कैसे हम स्क्रीन प्रोजेक्ट करें. मैं ऐसे बहुत लोगों को जानता हूँ. आई हैड नेबर्स हु वर फायर्ड बट हिज सन गॉट अ न्यू जॉब बिकॉज ही वाज डिजिटली लिटरेट. तो ये एक प्रोसेस भी चला था ड्यूरिंग द कोविड पैंडेमिक.
जी.
एंड
तो ये आई थिंक रुद्राशीष ये एक चीज दर्शाता है our own ability to learn and our own ability to quickly reskill and reinvent ourselves. देखिए डिजिटल लिटरेसी कुछ नई नहीं है ना, कोई नई बात नहीं है, लेकिन कितनी जल्दी आप पिवट करके कई चीजें अपने में अडॉप्ट कर सकते हैं, अडेप्ट कर सकते हैं, कुछ नया सीख सकते हैं. तो दैट ऑलवेज पेज यू rich dividends in life, professionally speaking, personally speaking. It is the mark of a successful person, this ability to quickly pivot and reinvent yourself. So, and today with the world economy, I think looking at bleaker times ahead for the next 1 year before it starts to, surge up again, because a lot of artificial sort of things have happened over the course of the last 2 years. I think there is going to be some course correction. There's going to be some writing, that is going to be done. Not right sizing, but correcting the course, so to say. So, इसमें भी employees will benefit a lot. We will all, as professionals, grow and benefit a lot if we are able to think and work more nimbly, more with more agility, and to learn something new. And this is a great time also to be connecting, with greater purpose of life, with an understanding, and this goes for both individuals and corporations. And also to say that सिर्फ पैसा कमाना, पैसा बनाना, in sheer absolute terms is not the only thing that we are required to do here.
Exactly. अब हमारे तरफ हमारे सराउंडिंग इतना नेगेटिव न्यूज है, हर रोज कोई ना कोई कंपनी हजारों एम्प्लॉयज निकाल ही रहे। फेसबुक ने 11,000 निकाले, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट ने निकाले, हर कंपनी निकाले। तो एवरी एम्प्लॉय, एवरी कॉर्पोरेट जॉब वर्कर इज हैविंग दिस एंजाइटी, ले ऑफ एंजाइटी। मेरे को भी हो रहा है कि क्या यही मेरा क्लियर कट का लास्ट एपिसोड होगा। एवरी नाइट आई गो टू स्लीप थिंकिंग दिस।
नहीं, भगवान ना करे कि आपके क्लियर कट का लास्ट एपिसोड हो।
Keep my fingers crossed.
नहीं, देखिए ऐसा है कि the thing is that there are a lot of companies where this sensitivity is being used, right? बहुत सारी अमेरिकन कंपनीज ने अभी एग्जाम्पल भी सेट किया by outplacing and helping their staff with placements in other corporations. Right. So this is also something that companies have brought about with a greater heart, I would say. Right. मैं वो इंडियन कंपनी की बात नहीं कर रही जो शायद आपके मन में भी वो खटक रहा होगा एक एग्जाम्पल कि किसी एक प्लेयर को आपने इतने सारे पैसे दे दिए और खुद अपने लोग आपने बहुत बुरी तरह से बहुत disgracefully निकाले.
The company was very criticized as well.
Yes. The company was very criticized as well, and I think rightfully so. So I think उसी कंपनी को साइड पे छोड़ते हुए बाकी कंपनीज में एक better understanding है कि we are dealing with human lives. We are not dealing with just a payroll. We are not dealing with just numbers. We are dealing with human lives. So how to minimize the negative impact? देखिए ले ऑफ सिर्फ एक व्यक्ति को, एक इंडिविजुअल को ही इम्पैक्ट नहीं करता, उसके पूरे एनवायरनमेंट को, उसकी पूरी फैमिली में बहुत इम्पैक्ट करता है और उसका एक बहुत लास्टिंग ट्रोमैटिक इफेक्ट रहता है ऑन द लिव्ड एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ दैट पर्सन. तो आई थिंक इसको ध्यान में रखना चाहिए कंपनीज को, इसको ध्यान में रखना चाहिए सीईओज को, मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर्स को. डेफिनेटली my HR fraternity and all the CHROs out there have to be more sensitive about this. How are you laying off people? Sometimes the why is beyond you, right? The why might be beyond someone as an individual in a position of power, but it is ultimately a position of responsibility. Therefore, they have to keep the sensitivity, the human angle in mind when they effect these layoffs.
So, what do you suggest the employees that are being laid off, उनको इस free time में, उनको इस gap में क्या करना चाहिए to upskill their CV, to add more gravity to their CV?
देखिए, I believe that अगर आप clear हैं अपने गोल्स को लेके, अपने प्रोफेशनल गोल्स को लेके, अपने पर्सनल गोल्स को लेके, अपनी प्रायोरिटीज को लेके, कई बार गोल्स क्लियर होते हैं, प्रायोरिटी कम क्लियर होती है. तो दिस इज अ गुड टाइम, इट कैन बी अ गुड टाइम टू एड वैल्यू टू योर ओन स्किल सेट. वो आप कैसे करना चाहें, कैसे कर सकते हैं, दैट इज अ ह्यूज एरिया to go into. It can be a short certification. It can be a reset of how you're living your life. It can be a reset on health. It can be prioritizing something in your environment, saying, or even being open to experimenting with what you have been wanting to do all along, and perhaps pushing aside because paying the EMI was more important, or because we all are so accustomed to our paycheck coming into our bank account on the 30th of the month or the 1st of the month. We are so accustomed to it कि हम उसके बिना खो से जाते हैं.
Exactly.
उसको एक मिनट के लिए थोड़ा सा पीछे रखते हुए we can focus on what we would like to do with our life without being driven by the paycheck compulsion.
Exactly. व्हाइट कॉलर वर्कर्स को जब 1 तारीख जब संडे या सैटरडे होता है तब उनका सबसे डिफरेंस तभी होते हैं.
बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं आप.
एंड दैट ब्रिंग्स मी टू माय लास्ट क्वेश्चन. ये पूरा ये ले ऑफ, ये डाउन साइजिंग का ये ट्रेंड, व्हाट डू यू थिंक ये कब तक चलेगा?
I think definitely we are in it. for 2023. देखिए इसके ना global factors which are influencing this are many, whether it is the fact that there is a war on in one part of the world, significant part of the world, which is going to be driving and has already driven a lot of other factors, whether it is grain shortage, energy shortage. The winter is coming, and the winter is not as kind to people in many parts of the world as it is to, let's say, those of us who live in a more tropical climate. Right? So देखिए हर चीज का लाइफ इज इंटरकनेक्टेड, और जब तक हम इस रियलिटी को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते तब तक प्रॉब्लम के बाद प्रॉब्लम आती ही रहेगी. there is we are all dependent on each other, and we are dependent on what is happening around us in the world, which is why the responsibility of the individual becomes huge in contributing in a more positive manner, in contributing in a better manner, and contributing in a less self-centered way to bigger good, right? So the macro factors that are in motion already will take some time to play out before things can be normal. और इसमें ये जो अभी हम क्राइसिस एक्सपीरियंस कर रहे हैं, इसमें कुछ हद तक कॉर्पोरेट ग्रीड का, इंडिविजुअल ग्रीड का एक हाथ रहा है टू bring about this downturn in the economy. I know, property prices have shot up, rentals have gone up, but also we know that spending was up, a while back. Discretionary, disposable income was up, and people were bargaining for more and more. At the employee level also, people bargain for more and more.
Exactly.
उसकी जरूरत है या नहीं है, we would like it to be more and more. तो ये sustainable कहाँ तक है? Till what point is this sustainable? और हमें इंडिया में तो we are very accustomed to asking for a high double-digit sort of growth, 25%, 20%, 21%. These are percentages which are unheard of by the rest of the world. If you are an American, you're lucky.
Projections.
बिल्कुल. और ये unrealistic projections में बहुत हद तक हमारे सर्विसेज, हमारे IT सेक्टर का बहुत बड़ा हाथ रहा है over the last few decades, not just one decade or two, but in the last 2-3 decades, they are the ones who have sustained this and who have created this. So I think it will let the macro factors come to a better place and better space, and then we will see that this will fall into.
Exactly. It's undoubtedly a bad time for blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, but I guess there's a quote from the movie The Dark Knight when a character says that the night is darkest before the dawn, but after that the dawn is coming, and it's going to come soon. So I hope it comes soon, and everyone who is being laid off, who is suffering from this very bad phase, depressed phase, they get over this more, and a more nice, good job is coming towards them. That's all I hope.
And that they're preparing themselves for that better job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Gitanjali, it was a pleasure speaking to you on this pressing issue. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Yudhishis, for having me here. Thanks a ton, and many more clear-cut conversations to come.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Gitanjali. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's all the news and scoops I have for you today. This episode was produced by Lalit. This is your newsman Rudrashish Kanjilal signing off. Have a wonderful day ahead and keep listening to ABP Live podcasts.
This is an ABP Live podcast.